intro, huh? Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to the regular session of the Yuma County Board of Supervisors. We'll also be sitting as all special taxing districts, and this is the February 19, 2020 meeting. It's 9 a.m. So I guess all board members are here. So sometimes they can either attend in person or by telephone. In this particular case, I think they're all in person, unless you're a hologram, which I don't think you are. So. All right, this is the call to order. We will stand then, please. Will everybody join us for the Pledge of Allegiance? Supervisor Packard, would you please lead us in the pledge?
Will you all join me in the pledge? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Talk about timing. We were going to start the meeting without an attorney here. We were going to be reckless and dangerous, but he's here now, so that means we're going to have to back up. All right.
We have two of them.
We have two of them? We have two attorneys?
Yeah.
All right, well, that can't be any safer than that. Let's move on then to call to the public. Call to the public is held for the public's benefit to allow individuals to address issues within the board's jurisdiction. Board members may not discuss items that are not specifically identified on the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to Arizona revised statutes, action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, responding to criticism, or scheduling the matter for further discussion and a decision at a future date. I don't know, this is for an item in the agenda. So I did have a speaker's card, but it's for an item in the agenda. Does anybody want to comment for it that is the public, or in this case, Susan?
Good morning, Chairman, members of the board, Susan Thorpe, County Administrator. I just wanted to let you know that, and let the public know that we have a visitor this week. We have Gideon Wagner. Just stand up. Gideon is a staff member at the Arizona Association of Counties, and he has completed his Master's of Public Administration, and so he's considering city and county management. So he's shadowing me this week to learn more about county management. Welcome.
Well, congratulations.
Welcome to the rough and tumble world of public policy. All right. Having had that, is there anybody? I'm going to keep the open to the public section open all the way through to the end of the meeting. We do have other visitors. I see visitors, some of the visitors anyway. Emma Torres is here from Campesinos Sin Fronteras, and I don't know if I recognize anyone. But anyway, well, I'm sure we'll get to it in a minute. Okay, so let's move on then to the presentations, proclamations, and appointments. During this segment of the agenda, board members may discuss the presentations and proclamations, and may announce appointments to the Yuma County Planning and Zoning Commission and the Yuma County Board of Adjustment. No legal action will be taken. I don't think we have any vacancies in any of the boards or commissions, so we're gonna move on to a presentation. This will be the presentation of the county line by Yuma 77, the Yuma County Government Channel. Are we ready?
It's budget season, and your Board of Supervisors holds a retreat to plan. Our health district helps third graders understand the importance of healthy eating and exercise by walking them through the body. And we have details about the upcoming presidential preference election being held in March. These stories and more, this is your County Line. The Yuma County Health District's award-winning program, Body Walk, recently hosted nearly every third grader in Yuma County. This year at a new location, they opened the doors to the public as well, allowing kids an immersion experience that they remember for years. For many parents, it can be a challenge to get their kids to understand why good eating choices are important. Your average parent also won't find these subjects very appetizing. climbing up a giant tongue to get swallowed through the mouth, slithering down the esophagus and ending up in the stomach, and ending up in the bloodstream while traveling to the heart.
This year we hit a new high of attendance because we're having well over 1,500 people come through. And then we've created a great partnership with Yuma County Library District, one of our sisters in the Yuma County family. So we're really happy to be here at the main library. It's a beautiful setup. We're just thrilled to have it here, and we hope that this is where Body Walk can have its home from here on in.
It's this unique trip designed by the County Health District that is perfect for kids, and it's the unique travels which make this a memorable visit. This year, nearly 2,000 kids made the trip through the body and finished up by getting sneezed out the nose. As with previous years, the program was a success, and there's already buzz about next year's program. Teachers across Yuma County have already inquired about signing up for Body Walk 2021. The state of the county budget was at the top of the agenda during the recent Board of Supervisors retreat with county management staff. A number of topics were up for discussion during the semi-annual meeting. During the retreat, the board, elected officials, and department heads heard a number of presentations focusing on financial updates, how the county is doing overall as an organization, along with our current economic condition, and how the economy seems to be shaping up.
I think departments and agencies got so used to conserving because of the recession that they've kept that very fiscally responsible mindset going forward into the future years. So we don't ever have a problem with our revenues not meeting our expenditures, and we're actually in very good shape.
With the retreat over, county officials are now setting their sights on the upcoming budget sessions. Stay tuned to Yuma 77 as we'll be bringing you the Yuma County Board of Supervisors special budget sessions live later this spring. The presidential preference election to be held in March is gearing up. As a result, voters who are Democrat will be able to choose who they would like to be their presidential candidate for the upcoming general election in the fall. On March 17th, only Democrats need to worry about how they will vote at the polls or by early ballot. All other parties get to relax until the primary election in roughly 6 months.
I would recommend that if you are an independent or a Republican, no party preference, don't show up. They will have to vote a provisional ballot because they are not eligible to vote.
Of course, your county recorder and elections office have been preparing for months and are hopeful that all registered voters understand that only Democrats can cast a ballot on March 17th. You can vote at any of our convenient voting centers, which can be found at yumacountyaz.gov/elections. Polls will be open 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. Remember, you only need to vote if you're a registered Democrat. It's an effort to expose the youth in Yuma County to science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics. The Yuma County Library District recently launched their latest program called Full Steam Ahead. Grant funds from the Library Services and Technology Act were provided, which allowed the library district to purchase technology and equipment to provide hands-on learning activities for young people.
It's an opportunity for the Yuma County Library District to look at what their community needs and design programs that are valuable and needed to help kids learn.
Teens can learn about basic coding and robotics, while younger children can participate in experiments and construction activities.
This is just an opportunity for us to show the community what we've received and to give them a little glimpse of the types of programs that we're going to be having come up from now until June.
You can find out more about Full Steam Ahead by visiting yumacountyaz.gov and following the link to Library under the Government tab.
Hi, my name is Mary and this is your Health Watch. February is Heart Awareness Month. It's the perfect time to learn what you can do to keep your heart healthy. Don't smoke. Smoking damages blood vessels, increases heart rate, and can cause an irregular heart rhythm, which makes your heart work harder. Smoking also raises blood pressure, which increases the risk of stroke. Stay active and eat healthy. Physical activity helps the heart and blood vessels stay healthy. Aim to get 150 minutes of physical activity per week. Get an annual physical. It's an important step that can help identify issues so they can be prevented or treated early. For further information, please contact the Yuma County Public Health Services District at 928-317-4550. This is all for now. Until next time, stay healthy, Yuma.
A recent open house at Yuma County's administration building brought to close months of construction and expanded space for some county departments and agencies. Personnel growth in county government has slowly climbed over the last 20 years, sometimes creating cramped offices. This is especially difficult for departments like Human Resources that need private offices for certain meetings. The results of just over 3 months of work on the Yuma County Administration Building will allow our Human Resources and Budgeting Office the ability to spread out. It's not the last project aimed at creating better conditions and more space for your county government. Soon, we will be reporting about the fate of the Yuma County Board of Supervisors Auditorium, their offices, and the Communications Department's plans for relocation. We'd like to thank you for joining us for this County Line. If you'd like to watch past episodes, log on to yumacountyaz.gov/VOD. And of course, you can join us live on Facebook. We'll see you next time.
Okay. That was interesting, especially Mary's admonition about not showing up unless you're a Democrat. I mean, just in case you missed that, I'd like to remind you, do not show up unless you're a Democrat. I didn't get that at first.
That
but
was cute.
It just sank in. All right, that was the Yuma County Line. The next one is a presentation by Julie Angel, President and CEO of Greater Yuma Economic Development Corporation. You will provide us an update on the corporation's activities.
Good morning, Chairman,
morning.
members
morning.
of the district. Thank you so much for having me here today. I do have a presentation.
You know, we call them the dreaded PowerPoint presentation,
It
but
is,
we
yes.
can
Oh,
deal.
but I
This
wanna
one's a
hear it.
nice one.
Important.
Yeah, it is.
I hope so. I hope you find it such. So, very good. All right. Our presentation note. Well, the county line is always a pleasure. You guys do such a good job of getting information to the public. I just want to commend everyone who has their hand in that. It is such a well-done presentation and dissemination of information. I am going to cover some of the things that the projects that we're working on. We're going to briefly talk about those. We're also going to talk about some legislation, and we're going to talk about our upcoming travel. And let me see. Julie, I think she's going to have to do it for you as a PDF. Okay. All right, next slide. Okay, so these trends are not too different from what I presented last year, but I am going to talk about a couple trends a little bit more further into the presentation. So this is just for to have on file or for your edification. These trends are very similar to what we were seeing last year, and the emphasis on work, live, and play continues to grow. Talent is going where they can have a quality of life that they prefer, and companies are chasing talent. So we have to make sure that we have the amenities and the community amenities that are expected when talent is looking for a place to put their roots down and grow a family. Next slide. And the labor trends, one of the things that we're very proud of is the fact that we have a new trend in this community of college-going students. We also have adults going back to college, and so that is going to change our dynamic significantly, and it's going to improve our attractiveness when it comes to recruiting companies that are high-tech and things like that. Next slide.
I like the 66% are first generation.
Yes, 60 and over 75% are a minority,
Mm-hmm.
which that diversity is so important to our economy, and we're very blessed. We're just incredibly blessed. And I apologize for this. I don't know what happened when we converted it to a PDF, because all of those pictures were supposed to be in grayscale so that the words were what you could see and not so much the pictures. So I apologize. These projects are all in code name because they're all still heavily researching their location selections. We are in the top 5. And this is the company's estimations of what the job creations will be, what their investment will be in the community, the new payroll, and how much space they're going to need. So again, you can't really see, but countywide, some are countywide, some are East County, some are Yuma County, or Yuma specific, San Luis specific. Yes,
Project Caliente.
Project Caliente, that stands out. It's in red, and it's got San Luis.
Well, and gee, it's not a surprise what we're talking about. I didn't, the picture is actually what the company does. So there's no surprise anymore. But this is what's estimated for the projects that we are currently working on. And as I said, we are in the top of their selection pool and have a very good chance of these companies choosing us. Next slide, please.
Project Dry.
Next slide.
Project Waste.
A little bit more. Okay. So here is where we have been putting a lot of our emphasis is what's happening across Arizona. And Arizona is not alone. This is happening across the U.S. However, it is happening worse in Arizona than any other state in the nation. And that is the disparity between our metro areas and our rural areas. Our rural areas have not recovered to pre-recession numbers. They haven't even hit their 2007 pre-recession GDP or labor force. Some of these people are losing key industry sectors like education. Teachers are leaving, doctors are leaving. We're tracking by county which ones are losing, what jobs they're losing and what jobs they're gaining. And it's kind of scary to see the number of communities that are really struggling with the services that a family expects to find when they come into a community, and that is healthcare and education. So we were on a trip to Detroit with the president and CEO of the Arizona Commerce Authority, and we were sharing our concerns with her, and she kind of put it back on us and said, you come up with a solution. So when we got back, we sat down with Paul Melcher, Hector Tapia from the city of Somerton, Jenny Torres from the city of San Luis, Jeff Burt from Yuma, and Larry Kilman from the town of Welton, and we said, what can we do that isn't going to be a one-size-fits-all? Because if you've seen one rural community, you've seen one rural community. Everybody needs something different. Everybody needs something different. And we can't legislate something that is not going to work for them. So we came up with a bill that actually is going to, it's HB 2814 is being heard this morning in Ways and Means. Greg Levan is there testifying this morning. Tim Dunn sponsored it. Very, very excited to see the number of co-sponsors. We have 20 co-sponsors, and they are both Democrat and Republican, and they are both House and Senate. So they do see the need for this. We have one opposition, which is the Arizona Tax Policy Group, which is a watchdog, and they don't like the fact that it's a reclassification, but I want to explain that. So the purpose of this incentive was to give councils, city councils and county councils, the ability to determine what is a high impact project, what is going to make a difference in your county. It may be incentivizing a developer to come in and build homes. In Parker and Quartzsite, they landed Rose Acres, which created over 1,000 jobs. These people have no place to live. So what they need might be housing and not industry. It will determine what they're going to choose as a high impact project. Then once you have determined if a company qualifies or a developer qualifies, they will get a tax reclassification on their investment. So the tax you're collecting day one will not change. You will not receive a decrease in your general fund. Your general fund is going to remain. And then the new tax, the new investment is what they're going to receive the reclassification on. So this does not have a negative impact on your current revenues whatsoever. And your future revenues will be able to increase once they have been paid back for the infrastructure or the investment that improve the community. And it is only eligible to investments that stay. If a company leaves, we're not incentivizing equipment. We're not incentivizing anything that doesn't stay with the community if the company were to leave. So you only offer the incentive. And again, you are the one who makes that decision on what you're going to incentivize. It is primarily for infrastructure. It is bringing water and sewer and power and broadband to areas that today don't have it. And a company can now come in and pay for those high dollar infrastructure things and get reimbursed over time through their property tax bill. And that was the whole point of this bill. So we really hope that all of you will sign on to azleg.gov and support HB 2814, because we are going to need a groundswell effort to make this a reality, and it will definitely drive investment into the rural areas that are suffering. When you look at this graph, it breaks my heart when you see the counties that didn't have any job growth whatsoever. And for the next 2 years, almost 85% of the job growth is projected to be in Phoenix, or the Phoenix metro area. And that means our rural people are going to have to move to Phoenix for those jobs. And again, we are decimating our rural areas. And that infrastructure is critical to Arizona's survival. We have to have these rural communities, or we won't have the ability to bring goods across the border into other states or from Mexico. So it is critical that we really have some form of legislation that is going to increase the interest in rural Arizona. Next slide, please. Any questions before I go on?
I have a question. So
Yes,
the only people that have signed up against it is ATRA?
Yes.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so far. So any other questions?
No.
Okay, this slide is what I just talked about.
Yeah, I know,
so
I
we
was
can go
gonna
on to
say.
the next one. Yeah, I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself.
That'll repeat.
So these are some of the projects that we're working on, and the gentleman down here in the bottom was our keynote speaker 2 weeks ago at our quarterly investor luncheon, and some of the things that Trevor pointed out are kind of exciting. I mean, there was good news and bad news. So the good news is we have some industry sectors that are projected to grow and grow at a good rate in Yuma County, and one of those is healthcare. And healthcare pays a very nice, livable wage. And that will change our dynamic again for that live, work, play. When you have that middle income supported by an industry that is growing, that means we're going to grow as well. And that is good for South County, that is good for East County, because not only is YRMC expanding their presence, but so is the Center for Border Health, Amanda Aguirre's. They are growing leaps and bounds, and both industries are in the education for this industry as well. They're growing new nurses, they're growing new PAs, they're growing new pharmacists, and graduating them out of programs right here in our backyard. So that was the good news from his presentation. The bad news is the other industries that are projected to grow are very low wage. They're very low wage industries. And that is something that we have to change, and we will continue to try and bring industry in that will change that dynamic. When your only ability to choose between a part-time job or a seasonal job, we really need to have full-time year-round employment that offers health benefits and actually then will continue to thrive this economy, meaning buying cars, homes, those things. So the GYPA, we are working with the Port Authority on a grant application through AGRANT. It is called the ESP Extra Strengths Projects Grant, and Yuma County helped us secure one of those for GM. When General Motors built their plant, they built a turn lane with an ESP grant, and Yuma County was the co-sponsor on that grant. We're now doing this for the Port Authority to extend Avenue D. So we have it on good authority that we have a good chance of getting this one funded. Greater Yuma Economic Development partnered with the Chamber of Commerce for the South County Resource Center. We opened a building in San Luis, but it is serving all of South County, and it has the presence of the Chamber, GYADC, it has the Arizona at Work, it has
It's not a big
oh my goodness, there's several, I'm sorry, I just went blank. There are several of us who are co-locating, and one of my staff members, Creama Hare, will be there once a week. So we will have a presence once a week, all day in the office, but we will also have access. There will be terminals there so that if you come in on a day that we're not there, you can still reach us. So the whole point of that is to help companies from San Luis Sonora who are interested in expanding so that they can contact us through that office. And it is also to help our local residents as well. Then our TBIC, this Transatlantic Business Investment Council, is a new group that actually sought us out. They represent European companies, and they represent European companies that are trying to come into the U.S. They are from smaller communities, and when they think of the U.S., they think of New York and Los Angeles, and that's intimidating, and they don't fit in those markets. And so they have hired TBIC to find locations that work well for them. One of their major primary industry sectors is food production. And so they reached out to us. We have now Arizona Western College has also agreed to partner with them, and Arizona Western College is going to adopt the German internship program. And the German internship program has been awarded worldwide status because of their success. And Arizona Western College will be the first in the United States as a community college to adopt this program. So we're very excited about their willingness to step up and partner with TBIC.
Is it food production?
It's everything. So it's manufacturing, it's food production, it is IT, it's plumbing, it's everything. So it's across the board. And that's why Arizona Western College was such a good fit for it, because so many of the programs they have
Are certifications.
Right. And so what they do, they have a training syllabus that's going to be the meat is how they do it going forward. So that is the relationship they will have. We're really excited because they sought us out because of the assets that we bring. And we are one of 3 west of the Mississippi cities. Everyone else is on the East Coast, but we are one of 3 cities that they have chosen to partner with. And they are bringing us, next slide, I'm going to go ahead and go on to the next slide real quick if that's the right one. No, it's not. So never mind. I'll go back. So I will talk about TBIC a little bit more when I get further into some other slides. And one more thing on the EDA grant, we have 2 EDA applications that we're working on. One is for the final study of our spaceport. And the way the report or the study has been crafted, it will segue right into the FAA application. So all the results we get from this final study will go right into our FAA application. The group that is doing the study is very knowledgeable in FAA applications. They've done almost all of them that have been done in the last 10 years. So we're really excited to be working with the company. It's called ACTA. And so EDA, we have submitted our grant this week, and we will be hearing back. They said it would take 8 to 10 days for them to review it. We had a pre-review. They signed off, said it was ready to go. So the pre-review was very positive. So we're excited about this EDA grant. And then we're also working on EDA grant for the relocation of the fairgrounds. Good. So next slide. We are partnering, of course, Arizona-Mexico Commission. There are 3 of us in Yuma County that are on that commission, and we worked pretty hard on the USMCA adoption, and we did a lot of heavy lift on that. We are now watching some of the trends that are happening in Mexico. Under the new administration, he has shrunk government. Well, government was a lot of the middle class. And so the middle class there's been a significant layoff in Mexico. This is going to impact us eventually. So we have to keep aware of what's happening there. There has been production stopped on Volkswagens in Mexico because no one is buying them right now. And there's been other productions that have stopped. Some of the projects that were in that list are actually moving from Mexico into Yuma, or looking at us because they're a little concerned about what's happening. So we'll keep a close eye on that through the Arizona-Mexico Commission and through our efforts as Forefront ED. The opportunity zones, I just wanted to report that Senator Sinema is doing some research and is going to reopen this because she's very disappointed, as is most everybody, that it's not doing what it was purported to do, which was drive investment into areas that are in need of investment. When you have places like Old Town Scottsdale and downtown Tempe and Mesa Gateway Airport are now opportunity zones, tertiary markets like ours are not even getting a look because they can go into those markets, reap all the benefits of an opportunity zone, and have a guaranteed investment, return on that investment. And so Cinema is going to revisit this, and I'm very hopeful it does change some of the dynamics and that we are able to bring our industrial sites into the opportunity zone. Yuma 50 is working very hard with both military bases, but one of the main projects that we're focused on is the relocation of the fairgrounds. And I have to say thank you to Paul Melcher. He has had such a large role in all of this and did most of the heavy lift on this. And so we will continue to monitor that. And we're also looking at, we're getting ready to go back to DC in April or early May, and that will be, the House will have already done the markups on the defense authorization bill, and the Senate will be getting ready to. So then we can talk to both sides and make sure that there aren't any changes in there that are going to impact us negatively. Next slide. And real quick, I need to go back to the bill. I forgot to mention this. After we met with all of our economic development partners, we sat down with a smaller group, and it was Paul Melcher, Joe Worley, Greg Levan, and myself. And I can't thank Joe Worley and Paul Melcher enough for the research they did on the old enterprise zone, because that's where a lot of this language came from, was out of the enterprise zone. And Joe really did give us that level of support that we knew we were going to need, because if it was going to have a net negative impact on your current revenues, it wasn't ever going to be approved. So I just need to thank Paul and Joe for all their help on helping craft this bill. And our travel schedule for 2020, Natural Products Expo in Anaheim. When we made this presentation, we had 5 meetings. We now have 7 meetings, and TBIC is helping with these meetings. TBIC has 6 of those meetings are with their clients. So they have come to the US, they're penetrating their products into the US market, and now they're looking for a location. So we're very excited about the meetings we're gonna have in Anaheim. We were going to Pleasant Prairie, Wisconsin in April to visit a food client that we're working with, but they have expedited their process and they're coming next week. So instead of going there, instead of going there, they're coming here, which we're very excited about again. And we are going to go to Pennsylvania to talk or meet the CEO of a medical device company that we're working very closely with. So we're going to swap the Wisconsin trip for the Pennsylvania trip. And then we will be meeting with site selectors in Dallas, April 4th through the 6th. And then Hanover Mess is the largest manufacturing trade show in the world. And 2 are held a year. One is held in Germany and one is held in the US. This year it's in Chicago, and so we'll be going to Hanover Mess. TBIC will be working with us again on this one and getting us the meetings with their clients. And then we will also be reaching out to clients that we know for sure as well. And then the Process Expo is another food production trade show in Chicago. Next slide.
All right.
So what we're doing with our Mexico partners is Karima Hayer, who is hiding in the back there. She has coordinated with the Port of Ensenada, the Port of Tijuana, the Port of San Diego, Mexicali and San Luis Sonora, and our ports to have several meetings and tours. So this group in the big picture, this is over in San Diego, but they went to Ensenada and they also went to Tijuana on that trip. They also had a summit in Mexicali for trade on using our ports. So next week, Ensenada, Tijuana, and San Diego will be coming here, and they're meeting with Mr. Schwam. They're meeting with Buna George from the Port Authority, and I believe they're going to be meeting with some of the Port Authority members, and we're going to be talking about trade opportunities and partnerships. Then in April, we're holding a summit here in Yuma, and it's going to be all those trade partners. And what we're trying to do is reduce the cost of logistics with companies that are now using LA Long Beach because of the shorter distance and the opportunities. We're trying to help them save money. So that's one of the things we're working on as part of Forefront ED. Next slide. The campus is still a priority. This is one of those live, work, play, quality of life. We have so many companies that are in Yuma now that their employees need continuing education all the time. And it is because technology is changing so rapidly. What this is going to look like at the end of the day, we don't know, but I'm very excited to say that we have hired an administrator, and he is doing a lot of research on the needs. He is also working with Mexico because we recognize that our Mexico universities have to play a role in all of this. So we're finally having some momentum going forward on this university. And Russell is on that board as well, so he could probably answer questions better than me. Next slide.
Well, we want to keep the meeting short.
Yeah, okay.
Never works that way.
Are you telling me to shut up too?
It
Vector,
can't.
okay, so spaceport, this is what we're really excited about. And as I said, we do have our final study funded. I have a meeting in first week of March. I'll be going over to Tucson, and the Directorate of Space for Mexico will be in Tucson, and we're going to be sitting down with them. We're going to be talking about our spaceport, and we're going to also be talking about some of the companies and the matchmaking that we can do with their companies and our companies. Next slide. Well, actually, I think that, oh, yep, one more. Quality of life. We have actually hired a full-time person now who is doing nothing but trying to market and coordinate some of the things that are happening in the whole county and creating this messaging that will make it more known, because we know, those of us who live here know how wonderful it is to live here. But how do we get this message out? So that's what we're working on. And I am happy to answer any questions. That concludes my report. And I'm sorry if I went a little bit long. Oh, no.
No, it's fine. It was an interesting report.
Thank
You know, you've done such a great job. I've already forgot who was the YADC director before you. So that's a big
Thank you.
compliment.
No, actually, it's because I've been there so long. It has nothing to do. It's because of.
It's a time then. Oh, I see.
Yeah, it might be.
It's just time.
I've been
Oh,
there a
thank you,
long
Julie.
time.
Really, you guys have done a great job. And I have seen that organization go from a simple, very, very simple organization to the complex one it is right now. And that's a tribute to you and all your staff, because you really now having an impact. I mean, not that you weren't before, but it's a noticeable impact. And I think it's great to see people who have that drive as you have shown throughout time. And maybe we don't say that enough.
I really do appreciate that, but I really need to say this as well. What has changed dramatically is the fact that our communities now have economic development people as well. They have hired their own. And that partnership has created this groundswell energy that you're seeing. It's part of this massive change that you're seeing. And what Paul has proposed for an economic development strategy is a godsend. We have been needing that for a very long time. And so we're very grateful that you have invested in economic development, that you have hired someone to take the lead in economic development, because that's why you're seeing a change. That is really what's behind this, is there's more people now coming together and working for a good cause. So, but thank you very much.
And we're getting more and more jobs for our
Any other
residents,
comments,
so-
questions?
I just have a question. You mentioned Avenue D
Yes,
For the Port of
from the
Vancouver.
port.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Okay.
Port Authority.
but isn't that Avenue E? And also, I wanna just mention, I know it's been probably about 8 years ago that there was an assessment or study done by, I think by YMPO, to look at that Avenue D and Avenue E, see how much land or right of way they would need, and just to identify what areas they needed to buy or, you know.
Oh, Martine, I Supervisor Porteous, I'm sorry. I really wish I could answer that question. The only information I really have, and Greg Levan, I'm sorry, he was supposed to be here this morning with me, but he is in Phoenix. He can tell you a little bit more about that, because who's working directly with Buna, George, but it is extending D2E is what I understood it to be, that this was going to be the connection between those two, is what the grant was going to go towards. Does that make sense?
I think it's E to 195, right?
No. No, it's from, it was the last, well, it was from E to Avenue D, but there were some areas that they could save money and use Somerton Avenue and go to County 18.
I think Paul may have an
Paul
answer
may have an answer.
for you.
Oh, great.
Hey, you look like you wanted to say something.
Please, please.
Thank you. Mr. Chair and members of the board, we met as a group last week, and I mean we as in the city of San Luis, the city of Somerton, and Yuma County to discuss that Avenue E corridor project. And so phase one runs from what we call County 23rd north to County 18th Street. So we're also, that would be phase one. So that's funded, ready to go. The design concept report's already been complete for the first phase. Phase two would run from County 18th north to County 14th, where the Somerton has planned some industrial development. And then it would go to the east, then to connect to the area service highway. So phase one is already in the process, and we'll be working on phase two here coming up.
And the grant is for phase two. We're the grant writer. I'm sorry. I should know more about that, but we're writing the grant.
Okay.
Sorry.
Paul, was that, what YMPO did, was that taken into consideration?
Yes, and YMPO is the one who had been coordinating the first phase portion of that. Just the funding agencies, originally it was going to be coordinated border infrastructure money, and then it went to, I believe, a different funding source. But the design concept report is still moved forward for that. So the good news is phase one looks like it's moving forward. But again, we're starting to work on phase two to see how we can make it all connect. It'd be an interesting development corridor, because as you go up there, you'd have a connection from the port to the area service highway, via two different routes. And that would certainly benefit Somerton and provide them an interesting connection to the port, which they lacked all those years. I think that's why Somerton was an original port member and then couldn't figure out what the benefit was. And it looks like we've determined how the city of Somerton can finally benefit from the port.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Thank you, Julie.
All right, thank you both, or all very much.
Right, the next item in the agenda, it's item number 3 from Human Resources. We will present the winner of the 2020 Yuma County Formula and Diaper Dive. And we have Adriana Morovka. I'm sure you can introduce her, but she is the New Life and Pregnancy Center Director. She's here somewhere, I guess. You're going to introduce her. All right.
Good morning, Chairman, excuse me, I'm sorry. Myra Alexandria, Benefits Manager. Here with me, I have Carla Vasquez, who is Benefits Representative. And today we are here to present the award to the winner of the Formula and Diaper Challenge. Carla did coordinate this event, so I'm going to let her just a little bit more on it. And we did have our members from our employee health team that did assist with providing information to all of our county departments. So without any further, I'll let Carla go ahead and present. And if the two ladies can join us, we'll be.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman, members of the board. Like Myra mentioned, my name is Carla Vasquez, Human Resources Benefits Representative. We are very excited to be here today and announce the winner and the results from our formula and diaper drive. And I do have Adriana and Cheryl here with me from Arizona Life and Pregnancy Center. At the end of December, they reached out to us in hopes to partner up with the Yuma County to help the community and the parents in need during the holidays. We then started the drive challenge in December and ended it in January. We challenged each department and office to participate and compete to see who would donate the most amount of diapers and formula. I do want to turn it in to Adriana for a little bit to see what they do with the donations and what this program is all about.
Well, thank you very much. I am really excited. When we reached out to Carla, it was one of those things that Yuma County, we have just a tremendous amount of families that are in need. My name is Adriana Morovka, and I am the director for the Pregnancy Center. We have several programs that we have within our Arizona Baptist Children's Services. One of them is being foster care, parent aid services. We also have family counseling. We have a mission encounter, and also the transitional program that serves a full spectrum of our families, from the unborn to seniors in our family. And when we reached out to Carla for having this diaper drive and formula, I was letting her know that the families that we serve, even as of the date that I looked at back at our numbers from this month, we've already served 228 families for just this month, and that's in total of year to date of 615 families that we serve distributions. And so these families come to our center for the pregnancy center. The services that are provided through the pregnancy centers are not just limited to that. Of course, they start with a pregnancy test. We do offer, it's not a medical facility. We are encouraging these families to go get the prenatal care that they need. So that's the first step if they think they might be having that service of having that test and having then encouraged to go get that prenatal care. And then along the way, as some of these families are now encountering this expecting baby this coming, this is one of the ways that we are able to then come alongside these families and encourage them with a dozen diapers, a package of wipes, and an outfit once a month, which just isn't a whole lot. It isn't made, the program is not made to sustain the family, but rather encourage and come alongside them. Some of the other things that we do with these families is also provide parenting and prenatal life skill classes. So these families are then better equipped and encouraged again to be able to be encouraged to continue to raise their families. And we are just so blessed to have a community that is, because we do rely on partnerships. It is so great to see our community here in Yuma. I was born and raised in this town, and to see our community come together now as an adult, it's just a blessing to see that. Through partnerships like this, it makes a world of difference when we are able to come together and encourage our own community. So thank you very much.
Thank
So
you.
the winner is?
The winner, so you guys know Yuma County likes a good challenge. So the competition was great. Together,
Yes.
though, we did donate 7,392 diapers and 22 cans
Wow.
of formula. So we hope that that makes an impact for our community. There is an office that went above and beyond and almost donated half of this amount. So today we wanted to recognize the Yuma County Attorney's Office. If Ed, Teresa, and anybody else is here to receive the award, we just want to thank you.
They must, they must know something we don't know. Or be very active in that area or something.
Come on, the county attorney's office, go.
Come on.
Come on, county attorney's
Yeah,
office.
yeah. Whomever's here from the county attorney, show up.
They did amazing, and we just wanted to say thank you so much for donating and for being a great part. It looks like you guys came together for this challenge.
I thought we were gonna give him the golden diaper award.
I got the wrong trophy.
Yeah, you got the wrong trophy.
So thank you guys so much.
Let's take a picture.
Yeah, sure. Let's go. Take a picture. You know, it's not very often we get next to diapers, whatever. But, so.
Tony's on a roll.
Come on.
Thank you, guys, come on
Don't
up.
be afraid. We're not taking that award back.
You're in the middle because I'm good, how are you?
I don't know about having that up here, Bobby. Hey, come over. Come on, Ed, get closer.
Yeah.
Yes, we'll be accomplished the golden diaper award next year. Make sure you send this picture to my wife. Diapers. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Hey, Ed, congratulations, man. You must know that stuff.
Sorry.
Well, don't say that. You know, everybody.
I didn't know. What am I doing?
What a surprise. What a student. What a surprise. I can, yeah.
Yes,
And we're gonna have to, you're gonna have to declare conflict of interest every time.
I know, huh? All these kids I
All right,
got.
that takes care of the presentations. We will move.
Thanks, guys.
We will move on to the consent calendar. The consent calendar is where the following items that are listed under the consent agenda will be considered as a group and acted upon by one motion with no separate discussion unless a board member so requests. In that event, the item will be removed from the consent calendar for separate discussion and action. I'm a little bit confused, which is not unusual, but on the way that you have listed the items here, a couple of them, like item number 9 and number 10, call for a PowerPoint presentation, which really goes against having it in the consent we'll have to pull them if we want to. Is it if we want to see the PowerPoint presentation? Oh, okay, well, fine. We don't. No, I'm just kidding. And number 14, which is a county attorney. Now, we don't need. Did we discuss this prior in a prior meeting? And this is just where we give you guys the direction, or because normally when you have legal, we normally have an executive session. We talk about it, and then we give you direction. In this particular case, the item here is to actually authorize you. So that means we already have discussed this item before?
This is an ongoing item related to solar valuation.
Oh, I know what it
so
is,
The board has taken many actions related to this.
So we
item
just
in the past,
continue.
so it's-
It doesn't need for us to meet in executive session and go over that. Okay. So every consent item here can actually be done in consent, right? Okay, guys, items 1 through 14. Is there anybody that wants to pull any of the items? Look, a reminder, we do not have to remind Democrats that they're only ones that can vote on March 17th. It's here, but we don't have to do that.
You're so
She's already done it. Anything?
Number 8.
Number 8? Shouldn't have given you enough time. You would have figured something out. Number 8. Any other item? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve item 1 through 14 with the exception of number 8. Is that moved? So move. Is there a second?
Second.
There's motion and a second. All those in favor of that motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
See, that was easy. I did have a question on one of them. Oh, well, I'm gonna have to wait.
You're the chairman, you could always open it.
No, it's a question for legal, and it pertains to a lot of the contracts we're approving. We're approving contracts for a 1 year with an automatic extension. Are we allowed to do that? I thought we had to approve contracts.
Yes, you are allowed to do that.
So the authority of the board is for the 1 year that it's in front of us. And so is that implying that we can actually sign a 5-year contract? 'Cause I thought we could.
You may have a future board that decides not to allow the extension to.
Oh, so it's approved for 1 year, and then every year, if we don't object, don't pull it back, it is automatically renewed.
Correct.
Okay, all right. Okay. It was a question that pertained to 2 or 3, so it wasn't a simple question. All right, so we have item number, did we vote it? Yeah, we voted on it?
8.
I need diapers or something. Engineering. Authorize the Department of Engineering to award contract for the Columbarium area project to Pilkington Contracting Company, or construction company, in the amount of $82,983.80 for the construction civil site work, and B, Premier Columbaria in the amount of $46,132 to provide and install 4 columbarium units. Well, that was a tough one. It was like a tongue twister there for a minute.
Good morning, Chairman Reyes, members of the board, Frank Sanchez, Department of Engineering.
I had a couple questions.
I don't see Ruby here, but, oh, there you go. She's over there. You were hiding. I can see now.
How long will we project this would meet our needs for?
The 480 units, in the airform, what we projected to be for 15 years. Based on other conversations I've had with Candy, depending on just how well this is accepted by the community, she thinks that it's actually might be about 10 years.
Okay, and then are we going to pursue the site with BLM, or are we going to just abandon that?
No, we are currently pursuing that.
They move so quickly, I'm not sure we can keep up.
Oh, yeah, right. This will be like that project.
10 years ago, I
Yeah,
think.
it was like 10 years ago.
The intent is these columbariums would be removable so that we could pick them up and actually transfer them over to when we get that other site.
Oh, I see.
didn't
They're
read
they're
that.
units,
Okay,
right?
good.
They're self-contained units that can be picked up and put someplace else.
Correct.
When you have the right
I
location.
don't remember.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay,
Good.
interesting. Glad I asked.
Well, first of all, let me ask Candy for forgiveness. I call her Ruby. Yeah, Candy, I moved you up, But, so, you okay with everything?
Absolutely. I'm happy we're moving forward. We are getting very close to being out of the city cemetery. And so this has been an ongoing long project. So I'm glad we're moving forward.
Yeah, that's good. No, you know, we,
I think we started
I
like,
think
what,
the
10 years
question,
ago?
yeah, and the
Yes.
question that
Yeah.
I had, I mean, I'd seen the changes over time where people just, you know, we now cremate more than we bury people. And it's just enormously, the change has been drastic, dramatic.
Chairman Reyes, members of the board, yes, we had some concerns when we moved to cremation only. I think it's been about 6 years ago now, and we have not had one issue with that. It definitely seems to be the norm anymore, so.
All right. Well, thank you. Any other questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve number 8 as presented.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to approve number 8 as presented. All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. We're moving on down to discussion and action items, where the board will open each of the following items separately for discussion and action as appropriate. The first one is a presentation of the Foothills Multi-Purpose Complex Project Development Plan on the remaining land for the parcel located on the northeast corner of Foothills Boulevard and the South Frontage Road, followed by direction to move forward with the project development plan. So the direction is to move forward. We can't move backwards on it?
No, forward, forward.
Just forward?
Always forward.
Always
Or
forward.
stop? You can't stop? You gotta move forward? Oh, look, I mean, I before you begin with your presentation, let me tell you that this has been coming for a long time. And it's been together with the discussion about having a parks commission and having them something to do that is actually a project. So I'm really looking forward to hearing your presentation on this project because it will be one of many to come in the future, I expect, I hope. All right, Nancy, begin.
Well, good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Nancy Nye with County Administration. Before I start, I want to let you know a couple of things. One is that in your packet is a copy of the development plan.
We have.
Secondly, normally we would have taken this presentation to the Parks and Recreation Commission first and get their direction to be forwarded to you, their recommendations. However, they haven't had a meeting for a few months, and because we are next discussion item, that's the reason why this presentation is being moved forward now. So, as Mr. Chairman said, this project's been in development or in discussion for a long time as the population grows in the Foothills area. And because of various reasons, it just never seemed to grab hold and move forward. And so what we have decided to do is put together, based on past project and experiences, a project development plan will hopefully give you and staff some guidance on where we can start and how we can move forward with this. See if I can make this work. Okay. It doesn't.
It does.
Oh, there it goes.
There it
It's a
is.
little slow, like some people I know.
As we said, you know, the residents living out in the Foothills area has been, there's been a growing demand for green space out there. Currently, there's only the Optimus Park, which is a retention basin, and there is a Wimata there, and recently a children playground was installed in that space. So there is something there, however, it's not a very large space. So the county has one parcel that's owned by the county that can conceivably be developed into a green space for the residents out there. And that is parcel number 701-37-901. And that area is currently has the Foothills Library branch as well as the Sheriff's Office substation located in that parcel. That parcel was initially sold to the Arizona Department of Transportation for the development of the Interstate 8. And a little more than 10 years ago, they had asked the county if the county could use that parcel, and if they're interested, we can purchase it back at the original sales price, which was awesome. So we proceeded with that. However, there was a caveat to that and that is that the parcel be utilized for transportation-related purposes. Okay, so keep that in mind.
Uh-oh.
Um, So because of various constraints, that we decided that it would be best to divide up that project into multiple phases. Not that it can't all be done at once or in conjunction with each other. The reason for it is that we feel that by dividing up into smaller parcels is a little bit easier to conceptualize and more positive to move forward. And phase one, what we're recommending is a green turf area with a walking path around it. The reason for the walking path is one is demanded by the Arizona Department of Transportation, ADOT, for transportation related. So walking is part of transportation.
Oh.
Okay. And
Good idea.
we're recommending the green turf be phase one simply because it will demonstrate one community buy-in. They will see progress being shown if something's started there and something's there available, and they will be able to conceptualize, future developments that could potentially happen on that parcel. We are recommending that phase one will be cheaper and develop a lot faster if we don't depend on grant funding for that development. So putting in grass, turf, walking path can conceivably happen with donations, volunteers, that sort of thing. And the community can bond together over the project like that. Phase two, we're proposing a playground with a parking lot. The current parking lot is needed for the library, is not for the purpose of recreation or extra. When you start having parks, you end up with a lot of parking spaces being taken. And the library is most utilized during the weekend, and that will conflict with any kind of green space, that's recreation space. So additional parking lot will be needed. And that's the most expensive thing, is the parking lot. We have done some research and concluded that community development block grant could be a resource if you choose. It would be developed with ADA accessibility. That would be the only way that this project will qualify for that grant. So the playground would have to be developed with handicap accessibility features. And by doing so, we can tie into the parking lot and have the parking lot done. Gotta be creative.
I'm gonna wait until you finish to talk about your phasing.
Phase three, with any open recreation, you want to have a model shades, especially in the summer, barbecue grill for families, that sort of thing. And then phase four, we're proposing additional green space because, one small green turf is not going to be sufficient as the population grow out there and more demands for recreation. Phase 5 and 6, the dog park and the restroom, we're proposing that to be a later phase simply because there's a lot more liabilities involved. When you're talking about mixing animals and people, when you're talking about enclosed public restrooms, crimes can happen. So those two phases, if you choose to have that done,
It'd be a crime not to provide restrooms if you're gonna get people over there.
I ain't go home.
That's what I was gonna say. Look, I don't know. I mean, I love dogs, but the priority over restrooms doesn't apply to me. I think the restrooms probably be the thing that I would, before you even have additional green stuff or something, I'd say that you want to have the green stuff and walking path, and you want to have the ramada and grill, because I think people need the shade. Playground and parking, that's liability for you. A playground equipment is notoriously.
Yes, liable.
Okay, so if you're looking at liability, you want to leave it at the end. The playground, and it's probably your most, it tends to be the most dangerous part of the whole system in there. The shade and the grills and the restrooms. I can see the restrooms. Did you want to finish, or is that open already for?
Definitely.
Yeah,
ask
it's open.
questions.
So give us your pitch.
Oh, me or here?
Yeah, no, you.
No,
It's your area.
you know, this is something, you know, playgrounds are, yeah, they're a liability, but my question is, you've got Optimus Park, which just put in a brand new playground area.
Mhm.
So I don't see a lot of liability in there. Talking to people, I had a meeting in Foothills last night with Mesa del Sol, and according to them, since that playground's gone into the Optimus Park, the use has increased tenfold as far as the kids,
Oh, definitely.
a place for them to go. Before, there was, you know, it wasn't used that much. It just sit there. All they had was a ramada. You put the playground in, and now the families are coming to it. And I think that's what we're going to see here. I don't think the liability is going to be that high. You know, and you look at other counties. I was thinking, last time I looked, there's 4 counties in this state that do not have a parks department, us being
We're
one
one.
of them.
No, let me tell you that I think that if we commit to go down this path, we're committing to actually get to a point where we're doing maintenance, where we're supporting these locations. Because what's the point of creating, common areas, and if we're not going to be overseeing them? We have the experience of what's called Esperanza Park over there in the Orange Grove area, where we built it, and we
Just kind of say, that's
it
what
kinda
I'm looking
sits
at
there. It
too,
was to school,
this
though.
is kind of the first step. We want to get a parks department together, because we've got the Gadsden Park, which Louis has done an outstanding job down there taking care of it, but it's in need of some attention. It needs some fencing done, the trees need to have attention paid to them, and then you said the one over at Orange Grove. We've got parks out there that we're relying on people to take care of, and I think it's the time to where we need to step up and do
Yes,
something with them, because the community, not just the foothills, but the entire county, have been wanting us to have parks and have parks available for their children to come and play.
Oh, okay. I'm supporting of the effort. I mean, the priorities are, I mean, whether you phase 1 or phase 2, whether we get enough money to do phase 1 and 2 or 3, or whether we get enough money. I mean, once you get into the $250,000 or $400,000, you're starting to, those are real numbers now. And
Definitely.
yeah.
And I noticed too with the diagram, on the parking area, there is a YCAT stop and parking in there, which again, I think that qualifies for the transportation nexus.
Yes, definitely. I only got a couple more slides.
Sure.
So
Go ahead.
let me finish.
Sorry.
Yeah, don't lock into, the phases in terms of, you can do it any phase you want, or any combination, or you choose
All
to-
together.
So I think you already spoken to a lot of these issues already, and with any project, there's constraints, and then there's certain assumptions that has to take place. This parcel is right adjacent to the interstate, so it's not the optimal space to have public recreation. So lighting is a factor. You don't want a distraction for the drivers on the interstate. Any type of major ball kicking, pitching, that sort of thing, you don't want that to occur. So in development, we have to be real careful and sensitive to that. Financial, as you already said, it's always a constraint. where do you come up with the money to build a lot of this stuff? Hopefully with the new bill that got passed and funding are going to happen with the Arizona State Parks, they will be receiving some revenues that way through the, I believe the lottery fund. But in any case, hopefully there will be money available through the state to have creation of new parks again, because there used to be funding in the state parks department. Maintenance, as Supervisor Simmons said, you know, it's great to develop parks, but the maintenance is an ongoing thing, and if there's no maintenance, a park can just go downhill really fast with graffitis and overgrowth of grass and shrubs and whatnot. Because of the transportation requirement, any development has to go through the ADOT approval before we develop the parcel. We built in some assumptions for this to occur, this whole project, which is, you know, local leadership. Hopefully, you know, in the foothills area, because there's a demand for it, there's some leadership that's going to arise out of that to move this project forward. Volunteerism, especially if we're talking about obtaining contributions and whatnot. Somebody has to be the one to go out and obtain fundraising, and the county can't take on that role. Nonprofit organizations, you know, anytime you're talking about contributions and fund development, the county wouldn't be able to hold those funds, so some nonprofit would have to come forward with and volunteer for that. Utilities, we are proposing using solar in some of the lighting, so that hopefully will reduce the cost of utilities, but you know, when you got green turf, you're talking about water usage as well. Again, ADOT approval, and with any project, if you don't assign a project manager or a project leader, the project will just stall. So somebody has to keep the project moving forward. So hopefully you will provide some of that direction and financial support. I think you guys talked about that already. We have the next slide. Development Services help us draft a preliminary conceptual plan. The site plan is not to scale, okay? So your western half portion of the parcel is already been developed with the library and the sheriff's substation. We're talking the remainder of the parcel. So if you choose to have a dog park, we're recommending that it be at the end, tail end of that parcel. So.
Bathrooms before a dog park.
Yeah, I would say so, but, all right.
So that's really it.
Okay. I think that what we need to do is, if we're gonna start looking at this, we need to start dealing with it at the budget level. In other words, we need to put something, you know, something behind it. Otherwise, it's just gonna be a lot of words and plans. But, and I've been looking forward to the day we discussed, you know, the possibility, but it's going to be a recurring cost. You know, it's going to be basically almost a new department. You know, it may begin with a couple of people, but it will eventually develop into something.
I've talked to Susan about bringing back a parks department somewhere in the budget there. Like I said, just start out with a couple of people that can kind of do the maintenance, and as we get this stuff going, and you know, just grow from there. But I think, you know, it's what, 94 was the last time the county had a parks department?
Oh, wow.
It was before my time.
Before that.
Was it before that? But I think the times now, the people are wanting outdoor space to go and recreate.
Wasn't that Julie's thing?
Well, yeah, we had a guy that was handling that, but he wasn't. Well, he was just planner. He was a planner. We had a guy for a while that was handling the Parks and Recs, but he was just a planner. He wasn't. Yeah. Yeah. But anyway, the bottom line is you put together a presentation, you found a need, you put together a presentation to supply that need. Now the Board of Supervisors needs to give you direction whether to proceed and do what. Just simply give you the like good and we'll find the money type of thing.
No, she's got money already.
No,
I got money, huh?
Some of them.
Phase 2 for the parking and the playground is on your next discussion. So that's the reason why we decided to move this forward. But we also need, some direction from you, obviously, as staff, as to what you want to see us do. Put that as part of the budget process for you for further discussion. Do you want to assign, somebody as a project manager to, work with the residents to develop phase 1? Those are the directions I think we're seeking.
Well, go ahead, Supervisor McLeod.
I'm not real fond of expanding another department for the county. I mean, it's just money, money, money. I'm curious why our existing staff with general services couldn't provide the maintenance. Why would we have to create a whole new, a lawnmower and somebody who knows how to repair plumbing, which we have on hand? I don't know why we would have to develop a whole new department to maintain this small park.
That will be a discussion during the budget process, but facilities management is the logical place to do maintenance. They currently do some lawn maintenance and contract with landscaping for our facilities. So that's a logical place for it to be housed. They do have full-time jobs right now, so it would be a way to extend some of that they could be doing. I also have asked the staff to come up with a plan B when Louis Gradius decides to give us the keys and walk away. We need to have, because he's basically doing a full-time job down there as a volunteer. So we do need to be responsible for the Gadsden Park area as well as any fixes at Esperanza Park. So during the budget process, we'll bring some options forward to you. So we've been looking at that.
Well, having a department too, does that open it up for more funding sources? If we can say we have, a parks department?
I think having a development plan that shows what your plans are that you've adopted is more relevant to getting grant funding than just having a department that maintains. So I think adopting a development plan or providing some direction to Nancy to make any modifications to what she just presented, then we can bring that back to the Parks and Rec Commission and then back to the board to adopt the actual plan.
Right, but let me just backtrack a little bit and just sort of clear my position on this is that it isn't just that we're not dealing with just the multi-facility over at the foothills, that we're dealing with the overall need of upkeep and maintenance of recreation areas, whether we call them reserve or preserve or whatever, because in the past we thought about creating some sort of a preserve, natural preserve out, like walking paths over down at the foothills and so on and so forth. We've discussed this plenty over the last 20 years. What hasn't been made or what hasn't been discussed in action taken is a commitment from the board to start something that has a future. In other words, that we don't. I'm not also advocating for us to create a Parks and Recreation department with an administrator and 3 or 4 people. I'm saying that once you go down this path of creating recreational areas, and you need to address the issue, or at least you need to address the fact that a volunteer organization is fine, but it's a volunteer organization. It may or may not be there. People like Louis may or may not be there in the future, and we need to, if we're going to go down this road, we need to acknowledge the fact that if we're going to be building these facilities, we need to understand that at some particular point in time, we have to take responsibility for them if we want them to continue serving the general public. Otherwise, we just have this go and stop and go type situation that what's been going on throughout the years. There's been some discussion about this in the past, and the attitude that I saw at the board at the time was exactly what Supervisor McLeod said. We did not have the money to begin a new Parks and Recreations project. We were conservative, we were dealing with budget issues that needed more immediate attention. We were not looking forward to create another expense to the general budget, another recurring expense, because there is that there is that caveat about this particular expense is once you get it in the budget, then it becomes part of the budget from that point on, unless we as a board decide, okay, we're going to stop doing it. And I don't think this is not one of those issues that I think has a rollback. I think in the past we could, because in the past we were looking for a nonprofit to take care of it. You know, whether it was the Rotary Club or whether it was the school district in Gaston or the school district in Orange Grove, we always try to find someone that could take care of the facility. To us, spending CDBG money, which is what we did in Esperanza, and not having someone to eventually take care of it didn't make any sense. So we had to find a nonprofit. As a matter of fact, we had to find a nonprofit to make the application. They needed to be the front person. Otherwise, the county ends up sort of in the same situation as most cities in Yuma County, which is using CDBG money for their own purpose, to supplement their own budgets. And that really, to me, has never made much sense. But I mean, we've done this with housing, so that's a discussion for the next item.
Yeah, I just, Mr. Chairman, I just want to remind you that you can't take any action today because
It goes to the board.
it has to go to the commission first, and then their recommendation will come back to you.
Then my take on this is that you should, if we're going to see some sort of a project update come to us, I'd like to see it being a complete one that deals with, you know, all different, you know, facilities that we have created or that we're in the process of creating or that we have some sort of a responsibility over. It's as a group and not just individually, so that we can actually look at a budget that we can deal with. If the facilities department is the one that's going to be handling, I'm sure they're pretty busy, so then we may have to add 1 or 2 employees to that so that it can be taken care of, and that's what I like to see. Okay, all right. Any more direction?
Well, I just want to add, dealing with parks when I was with the city of Somerton, and also retentions with all retention basins which fall under the parks.
Open space.
You know, one time we talked about contracting out, at least for the retention basins, because they still need to be maintained. So when you start adding playgrounds to retention basins, it just adds more work. But that would be one of the things that I would like to see if adding or going on the route of contracting out for the maintenance, lawnmower, you know, cutting the grass and all that. And that's something that the county wouldn't have to purchase any equipment if we contract out.
We do that now.
Yeah, but I mean, for $300, what we pay.
We do that now, is what I'm saying. That's what we do now.
For
the county does that for retention basins.
So that would eliminate to hire three or four employees when one can be sufficient enough just to oversee it and not having the.
Well, the problem though is the retention basins are normally inside an improvement district. So that means that when we do the maintenance and pay the maintenance, we don't. The county doesn't. That's why I wanted to make sure that we all understand. We have retention basins and they're maintained, but they're not maintained by county funds. They're maintained with their own funds. Are we getting too much off the subject here?
Yeah.
That was just an example. It was just an example.
I think you're still within the scope.
Oh, okay, thank you.
It's just an example of contracting out.
Contracting out. We normally do that, but I think this is a.
But with the park, it could be the same thing. I mean,
at the beginning,
when there's not enough money for any city, the first thing that goes out is the Parks and Rec department.
Yeah.
So when you start laying off employees, I mean, well, why? If you make contracts, then it's a lot easier to just get rid of that.
Eliminate.
And I go back to what we're mandated to do versus what we want to do. And I think counties are mandated to do certain things. And they pick and choose other things, to do other things. But I think that the county is not necessarily, the county, I'm sure, is not mandated to have a Parks and Recreation Department. Otherwise, every county would have to. And yes, it's not a great badge of honor that we're one of the 4 counties that don't have a Parks and Recreation Department. But at the same time, I've been here for a while, and every time that discussion came up, it was always a monetary discussion, a budgetary discussion, and a philosophical discussion about whether we wanted to go down the path of picking something we choose to do as opposed to something we were mandated to do. And we always said, okay, mandated stuff has to take priority. And when the budget's tight, that's where we focus on. And if it is the time now to broaden that approach, fine. You know, there'll be a time when we take a vote on it. But
I really think the time is now to broaden that, for the simple fact, it's kind of like Laura said, green spaces attract people. They
No.
bring people into the
it's quality
area.
of life issue. I mean, it's
And-
incredible to me when I go
And
come.
this generation
It's more focused on that.
is more focused on that, exactly. You see them out riding bikes, they're out walking, they want a green space to go to. And I think that's part of our job too, is to provide what the community wants.
All right. Oh, okay. I'll remind you of that when we get to vote
I think Lynn had
on the budget.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chair, my representative that I nominated for the Recs Department said, she said the county's got to have a little bit of money that they can use to maintain the parks that they have and do the park out in the foothills. And so she goes, it's a shame to have the facilities and have them in such disrepair that they can't be utilized.
All right.
So
Okay.
I'm just telling you what my representative
There is
said.
a speaker form that somebody filled in, Barbara Kavanaugh, and I suppose that you may want to say something before we leave this.
I'm Barbara Kavanaugh, and Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I have been living in the foothills since 2004, and formerly coming from downtown Yuma. And I know most all of you supervisors live within city limits, and you have beautiful parks. And the need has been great in the foothills area since, for 15 years or longer. And I was part of the planning committee for the 20-year plan in 2006 when the county planner met with us for weeks and planned these beautiful, we had parks and
Reserves.
Really. And we, that was so excited, and then nothing happened. And I have been bugging Supervisor Simmons since he got elected about parks, so he put me on the park commission. And
Typical.
we have enthusiasm, we have volunteers, there are so many nonprofits, and there's so many winter visitors out there. We this year it's just been overwhelming, that would be willing to work, would be willing to volunteer, to help. But the stopping thing is the insurance. We're supposed to go to these nonprofits and tell them that they need to provide insurance for a park. That stops it right there. Yeah. They're willing to help with trees. We have two the garden clubs that have been willing to help us to plan out and plant trees and tell us what kind of
What works, yeah.
Yeah, what kind of vegetation would work. And we've got people that are willing to go around, like myself, to try to get volunteer help and support. But the infrastructure and these large amounts of cost for, water, plumbing, and all that, we can't expect a nonprofit to do that. But I think you would have great support if this were instituted, because right now there's no outdoor space that's community in the whole of Foothills. And we're getting more and more families. My great-grandson lives out there now, and my granddaughter says there's no place. They go to the retention basin. She said it's all thorns, and you can't run around and play soccer with them or anything. So we have to go clear into town to get a playground, or the one that just went in now in Mesa del Sol. But the need is there, and the problem is the insurance and that thing. And in regards to the other parks that are county parks, it's a shame to expect retired people to take care of, like Louis down in Gadsden,
Mm-hmm.
to have to, give him a lawnmower and his wife maintain this park that's been for years and decades. And I think we're asking too much. When the lady spoke from the
Nancy? Mhm.
Miss Engel spoke
Oh, Engel.
about the
Oh, yeah.
quality of life that people look at to come here. If we had a beautiful park by the side of the road, it would be obvious. But to look into an area where there's no open space, no green space, they've even done studies recently that, psychologically that's necessary. So
I think we got plenty of open spaces. What we don't have is recreational
the
open
green,
spaces.
yeah, the grass and the trees. There's just nowhere. And we have a big bicycle group, though. That would tie in with the transportation.
Don't even invoke his
mode.
name because he will appear.
I know he will.
Pardon me?
You don't invoke his name. Don't call him up because he'll show up somewhere.
He'll be
The
here.
bike guy.
The bike guys, yes.
Our
Well,
bike guy.
anyway, I just wanted to let you know that there are a number of people that would be very supportive of this project, and we would really, really we appreciate all that Darren Simmons has done to help us push this forward, and we really want it to see in our lifetime and maybe within the next,
All right.
few years.
Thank you, Barbara. Scavana. We're not gonna make a decision on this item. It was presentation item. I guess the most we can do is say, go forward and take it to the commission and see what they have to say. But again, remind them that we'd like to see a general plan that includes more than just a multi-use facility for the foothills, but also some sort of a preliminary plan of what we're gonna do with the rest of the other
The other two
facilities in the
parks that
county.
we have.
Okay?
I think when we had a director previously in, I think, 2005, there was already a Parks and Recreation plan for the entire county.
There was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to be a recreation planner? We can add it to your job description, and you can be the recreation planner.
Sure.
Just don't ask for more money, but, fine. Okay, all right. We'll move on because this can get a little thorny after that. Let's move on to the next item, which is discussion and prioritization of proposed projects for fiscal year 2019 and fiscal year 2020, community development block grant application to the Arizona Department of Housing. For the first time in 21 years, I think I've been here, I need to declare a conflict of interest on this item. The Comité de Bienestar, which is an organization that I run, has made an application for the first time, again, in 20-some years. And it was the multifamily people that didn't really consult with their boss, but, so I have to sort of like pull back and have the vice chair, Mr. Porchas, take over the meeting, and for one of those very few exceptional times, I will remain quiet.
Oh, no.
This is almost impossible to me. I'm probably gonna have to step out.
Like I had to.
Thank you. Go ahead,
Okay.
Supervisor.
Go ahead and hear the presentation.
This could happen quickly.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chairman, and members of the board. Diana Veloz with County Administration. And today I'm here to give you just a brief history on CDBG, which I'm sure you're all aware of. But it's been 2 years since I've been up here with this item, and the CDBG process is starting over again. So that's what I'm here to give you information. So what is CDBG? That's what we call the Community Development Block Grant. And it's a little bit of a tongue twister, so I'm going to be referring to it as CDBG. Now, this particular program is funded by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, known as HUD. Now, HUD gives out this grant as on a formula basis to local governments and states. And it has been established since 1974. And it's just a very flexible grant available to communities for their development. Now, Yuma County is a non-entitlement, which means we have to apply for our funds through the Arizona Department of Housing, known as ADOH. ADOH gets the allocation from HUD, and they distribute it. This is the way they distribute it. They distribute it into different different pots. The first one is for regional account funding and state special projects, and then the other pot from their allocation is for the Colonia set aside. And I'm going to go over these applications very quickly for you. So there's 3 allocations that we can apply through with CDBG. The first one is called regional account, known as RA. So the RA account we get every year. HUD releases this funding allocation every year. And the RA account, it's my understanding that a long time ago there was a gentleman's agreement between 3 other different jurisdictions that we share this allocation with, where we share this allocation every other year with City of Somerton, City of San Luis, and also the Town of Welton. So last year, this funding was received by the City of Somerton and the City of San Luis. And this year, Yuma County and the Town of Welton will be sharing the allocation. And this year, we're estimating $400,000 as funding. We are not sure. We won't be sure until late March, early April of the exact funding we're going to be getting for the RA account. The next application is called the State Special Projects, and it's known as SSP, and that is a competitive grant. And for this grant, in order for us to apply for this grant, the grant has to be ready to go. So there's a lot of preparation work that goes into this particular SSP. And that means a lot of outside agencies don't have the funds or the resources sometimes to put together all that paperwork, because that paperwork does not get, that work does not get reimbursed. So the next one is the Colonia set aside. Now, Yuma County has 11 designated colonias. It's only available, you can only have projects related to water, wastewater, and housing under this Colonia set aside. And in a little while, I'm going to show you the projects that were submitted, and you'll see that within those projects, there's only 2 projects that are available for the Colonia set aside. And we'll discuss that as we go. Now, in order for the projects that are submitted to be able to be eligible for CDBG, they have to meet one of these 3 national objectives. The first one, to prevent or eliminate slumber blighted areas. The jurisdiction has had to have declared that area slumber blighted. The second one is to address an emergency need. Now, the jurisdiction has to show that they do not have any money to deal with this emergency. And this funding is actually, it takes quite a while to get this funding, so we normally don't use number 2.
Mm-hmm.
So most of our projects, as you can see, they'll fall under the low to moderate income benefit. And that's what we've historically seen in the past. That's what our projects have fallen into. So just some quick examples of eligible activities, which are up here: public service, economic development, rehabilitation, planning administration. So it's a very flexible funding source, again, available to the community for community development. And as we've spoken in the past, in our past meetings, I know the board really wanted to see what projects we funded in the past. So I just put together a quick list of RA funding that we funded in the past for you all to see. So in 2014, we did fund Amberley's Place for equipment for their new building. We did fund Healing Journey to expand one of their programs out into South County. And we did a preliminary engineering study in Orange Grove, Rancho Mesa Verde area. In 2016, we did fund Yuma County's owner-occupied housing program, and we were able to rehabilitate 4 homes out in Yuma County. We give money to Habitat for Humanity, and they did construct a home out in East County. And we did give money to Campesinos Sin Fronteras for their rehabilitation for their owner-occupied seniors program. In fiscal year 2018, we did give money to Catholic Community Services, and they were able to rehabilitate their safe house. Housing America got monies for their Orchid Street apartments. They were able to rehabilitate their 16 units and their laundry facility. And we are doing a preliminary engineering study in the Tacna area for their water system. So that concludes the history behind CDBG. I just want to let you know what's going on currently with CDBG and the process that we're going through right now. So back in January, we did have our first public hearing for this funding, for the upcoming funding, and we invited the public, and agencies came to that public hearing where they told us about the needs of the community and whatever projects they think that were necessary for the community. They did turn in those applications, and that's what we're doing here today. We're going to view those applications that were turned in. They are also part of your packet, and then you will go ahead and rank those as you see the priority for them. After you rank those, I'll move forward with the top 3 that you've ranked for the RA account for the state special projects. And this CDBG grant requires us to have a second public hearing, so I'll be here back in May just to show you the exact allocations for those projects that you've chosen, and so you can ratify those applications in May. And then we are required to submit our applications to the Arizona Department, well, no, it's the Western Arizona Council of Governments. All these acronyms,
WACOG.
like the militaries.
WACOG.
WACOG. We're required to submit our applications to WACOG, and WACOG is our technical advisor, so they in turn submit the applications to the state. We won't see funding until October, February timeframe. So the monies won't come in till that timeframe. Any questions so far?
Any questions?
So I'm going to introduce Veronica Garcia. She is our new grants specialist. She's going to help us with the spreadsheet. At the last meeting, we did want a spreadsheet so we could see the amounts and to prioritize the projects. So right now we have projects A through I. For the regional account, the RA account, we have an estimated $400,000. Staff's recommending that we pull aside an 18% administration allocation. So that leaves us with $328,000. The board can choose to change the administration allocation as they see. This is not an exact amount. So when you are prioritizing the projects, I just ask that you don't focus too much on the numbers. We don't want to go too far off, but that allocation might change. So for this first RA account, if you could prioritize 5 of the A through I projects, just in case the first 3 fall through for some reason while we're starting on the applications, then we can move on to 4 and 5.
Mr. Vice Chair and Diana, the Tacna Water Project is $2 million and you have $328,000. How does that work?
So you could choose to only, so the regional account, for the counties, we are able to submit 3 applications. You don't have to submit 3 applications. You can use that full allocation for just one of the projects here.
Okay.
The Tacna Water Project, yes, we're estimating it at $2 million because we're going to do engineering design and we're going to do partial construction with that. But we are really hoping that you choose to prioritize that under the Colonia set aside, not necessarily the RA, but they are all eligible for the RA.
Got it.
Yeah, that was going to be my question about the Tacna Water Project. It qualifies for Colonia.
Yes, it does.
And does the that's too small for me to read. Yuma County Housing Rehabilitation Program, does it also? Oh, there's a Colonia down there. Yeah. I saw
Mr.
that.
Vice Chair?
Okay.
It always bothers
Thank
me
you.
that we take the administration fees when that money could be put toward a project. I mean, everybody's already on the payroll, right? We're just taking CDBG money and basically supplementing the general fund. So I would prefer to see the entire amount go to projects.
Supervisor McLeod, the thing that happens is that we do have a technical advisor, which is WACOG, and they do charge us a fee for their technical services, so we have to have some administration fee for that. And then what we did last year with the RA account 2018 is we did use some of that administration money for Catholic Community Services and Housing America when their projects went over scope. So we were able to put it's kind of like contingency money towards that project. If we don't have anything set aside, the state will not allow us to move any money within the projects that you choose. And that's why it's important to have some contingency money in order for us to be able to, if that project does go over scope, we have a little bit left over to apply that at the end of the project.
So Mr. Vice Chair and Diana, actually, it doesn't go to our staff.
Yes, it is. We do pay for some staff time as well with it. Yes, we do.
Oh, I thought it, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair and Diana, I thought it went to WACOG for supervisor.
So WACOG does take a fee. They take a technical fee. It goes towards that. It goes towards staff time, and it goes towards contingency. So if you...
Mr. Vice Chair, and I'm with Russell. I think it should go to WACOG. I think it should go to contingency, but I think our staff already has salary, and it shouldn't go for our staff for additional funding. To me, that money needs to go to projects.
Well, now figuring out which projects, that's going to be the fun part.
Let's see, go ahead.
I just want to let you know that a very small amount actually goes to our staff time. Because we have to actually be real careful about documentation for those staff time that's actually work. So whenever possible, if there's projects that run over cost, we prefer using that funds to move over into the project. But if you have nothing there at all, then you are a sitting duck project.
So you're saying very minimal is used from the administration cost
Yes,
to?
we are
for staff.
recommending 18%, but you can certainly lower that 18%.
But out of that 18%, what percentage goes to WACOG?
Percentage wise, I couldn't tell you. They charge about around 4,000 for the technical assistance, and then the rest we use either toward direct staff time, or we use as contingency.
Well, yeah.
And also provide some funds for travel and training for the grant related.
So out of the 72,000, it would be 4,000 for WACOG?
Okay.
Yes.
And the rest is for the county to use. In the past, what percentage have, or what amount of the money is being used for staff?
It varies from year to year. Perhaps around staff salary, I would say probably around 30% of that 18% portion.
Is Mr. Vice Chair and Nancy, is that for your folks to go to training and for them to do conferences related to this?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that so the money from the CBD grants doesn't go to their actual salary, it actually goes to additional training and conferences for them to attend to do their job better?
We do use some funding for salary. Okay. For instance, Development Services provide assistance to the owner-occupied housing program. Anytime they provide assistance, their job duty is directed for Development Services. We're pulling that time away. or if we have a project that requires public works, which pay out the HERF dollars, you know, we do have to reimburse them. So that's usually what we pull administration dollar for.
Got it. Okay. I see.
Any other questions?
I understand that better.
So it's not the whole amount that it's used. It'll, like you said, 30% depends on.
Yes, it varies from year to year depending on the project and how intensive the work it requires. So it does offset the county's budget because if that fund's not available, we would have to request more funds for supplies and travel and training during the budget session.
Yeah. Mr. Vice Chair and Nancy, and for the expertise of development services and public works, right?
Mr. Vice Chair.
Go ahead.
I had a question, Nancy, on the Colonia, that 2 million available. That's a separate application to what the this one is.
Yes, Supervisor Simmons. Colonia is a set aside. It's only available every other year, so that they combine for the funding to be larger, because it's only available under the Colonia. Aside from the fact it has to be in the Colonia, designated Colonia, it can be only used for water, wastewater, or housing. The TACNA project actually came in at over $5 million. We are trying to tap into other resources, but TACNA is a Colonia, and we feel that we might as well submit an application
Yeah.
into this category.
So we're gonna submit for that 2 million for the TACNA.
If you decide to put that as a first application for the Colonia set aside, yes.
But that's a separate CDBG account from the 500
That is
or the
separate.
400,000.
That is separate, yes.
And Mr. Vice Chair and Nancy, the La Casitas apartment rehab and the Yuma County housing rehab are not in Colonias?
No, they're not.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So you want us to?
If you can just choose 5 of the projects from A through I that you want to rank in the regional account, the RA account.
5?
If you use so the top 3 are the ones that are going to be going up to the state to be applied for the state if you choose to send 3 applications through. But just in case, when I start working with those applications, if something doesn't follow through and I have to move on to the next project, that's why I ask you to rank 5. I'll move on to the number 4, and then I'll move on to the 5th one if those applications don't work.
So when you say RA regional account, is that or is this the CDBG or RA? Because you said the RA was last year was San Luis and Somerton, and now it's Yuma County and Yuma, or the town of Welton.
Yes. So we get the allocation, and the allocation gets split 50-50. Yuma County gets 50% of it, and town of Welton gets the other 50% of it. Yuma
Okay.
Yes.
But it's the CDBG money.
It's the CDBG monies, yes.
Okay. I thought RA was separate. There was another one.
Under CDBG, we have the RA account.
And that's what these are all under, the RA account.
Like I said, they all qualify, and
Yeah.
A through I,
I understand
Yeah,
that the funding
okay.
is too much there, so.
I just got confused when you said RA and then CDBG, Somerton and San Luis, and then Welton and Yuma County. I thought we were gonna get 400,000 this year and then another 400,000 next year. So, but it's
You
every
get-
other year. CDBG money, it's
But
every
we
other
share
year.
it, yes. So next year's
Yeah.
San Luis and
And
Somerton will get it.
yeah. Okay.
Yes, Supervisor.
Mr. Vice Chair and Diana, I read the Saguaro Foundation day treatment and child after school renovations, but can you explain it to me again, real quick, what they want to use that funds for?
Sure, they said in their application they have 4 bathrooms. Supervisor Pancarzi, sorry. They have 4 bathrooms in their facility, and only one is ADA. So they want to try and convert those other 3 bathrooms into ADA. Now, in the process of them submitting the application, I did have them send over some pictures, and I did ask them if they had gotten quotes for those 3 bathrooms, and they have not. So to renovate those bathrooms, you know, I'm thinking it's going to be a lot more than $65,000, but you know
That may renovate one.
maybe 1 or 2. Yes, I agree.
Thank you.
And they are not here.
How many apartments at Las Casitas?
Las Casitas. 40? Because they wanted to do 30. They only want to do 30.
Okay, so it's 30 units.
They only want to do 30 units.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
I was trying to figure out how we, you know, going to put the most people.
Well, my first part, if we're gonna do this verbally right now, is that what we're gonna do?
Yeah, we have to decide.
We have to decide.
My first is the Yuma Community Food Bank, so that's my #1 priority. I don't know about anybody else's.
Well, mine's gonna be the Tacna Water going for the Colonia.
Well,
that's
side of it.
That's different.
I think
That's
I think we
different.
can
Okay, so
all
we're,
agree on that.
well, I see it's on the part of
But,
the,
but I
We can
think it'll
do
be,
RA first, and then we can go down to the SSP, and
Okay,
then we'll
so
go down to the.
It's
it's
not
not-
the RA right now, the blue.
yeah,
okay, because I see it in the RA
Yeah,
as
but-
item I.
but I'm pretty
But
sure we're all gonna.
We can
get-
just skip that down, okay.
Yeah, I agree with the other 2 that you have down here, the state projects and the
Right.
set aside. Those
Yeah,
are perfect.
I'm
I
good
don't
with
have a
those.
problem. I think we're just working on these up here.
So do we want to throw it all in the foothills, split it up?
I'd like to try to get that Foothills project started. Maybe not all of it, but some of it.
That's 400K. That's more than what's there.
We don't do, we
Well,
don't
that's
have
what
to
you put
we
in
don't
the
have to
green
allocate
space
that-
and
that
et
whole
cetera.
amount, what it's there now. We can say 150 or 100,000.
Yes, you can choose to allocate whatever amount
Nancy?
to that project.
Are you writing them down, or should I write them down?
I got 'em.
You got, no, what was your first choice?
My first choice is community food bank. Yeah,
But we don't have to allocate that entire number, right?
no.
They can fundraise, say we get allocated 100,000 toward that project. They've got seed money, then they can fundraise to get the other 22, right?
And I just want to give you a reminder on the multi-purpose complex in Foothills.
Yeah.
The only component that's eligible is the ADA playground with the parking. So.
The walking park and the grass.
Oh, you
isn't-
can't put the
isn't
grass in the
eligible.
walking path, right?
No.
Okay, so it won't fall into that.
Right.
Okay.
So if you choose to award only 100,000, we maybe only put in the
Mhm.
ADA playground. And that's it. And then we'll have to figure some other way to, well, actually,
Yeah.
it'll be difficult to put in the playground without the.
Mr. Vice Chair?
Go ahead.
And Nancy and Diana, under the Campesinos de Frontera, I noticed that it was used for salaries. Is that what it was used for?
It was used for project and salary. So we do allow the grant, we do allow a certain percentage to go to direct cost of staff time. And so they do take a percentage. And actually, Campesinos Sin Fronteras is here today. If
She's
you
left.
wanna
She
hear.
just left. I was
Oh,
gonna
we
ask
have,
her.
Nancy's
Oh, you're
here.
here.
If you want to
Okay.
hear her speak.
Yeah, I do. I'd like to hear.
Nancy, did you come up?
Mhm.
Campesinos Sin Fronteras is requesting 150,000. We are proposing to assist 10 families with up to 14,000 to do emergency repairs. We are asking like around 7 or 8 only for
a salary?
That covers only like mileage and a small percentage of salary. Of the
Only
people that is
8,000 of it
involved.
is
Yeah.
used for that, and the rest of the 150 is used for the family. Thank you. That's what I wanted to know. Thank you, because I read that and I wanted to make sure.
So it's basically to cover the oversight of each construction site. or
Yeah,
whatever,
going for
going
each
to
one and,
town,
yeah. Mhm.
So the Las Casitas for 30 units, what are they doing to them?
They're replacing the AC units in the apartment.
Oh, okay, so it's AC units. That's how you get to that number, okay.
So you want to do number 2, or you want to, Russell?
Yeah, you know,
What's your first priority, Russell?
believe it or not, probably Gadsden Park.
I agree with that too, because that's a safety issue down there.
Yeah, and then I'd like to, I agree with you on the Yuma Community Food Bank, but I'm thinking more along the lines of giving them the
100K.
seed money, you know, yeah, like 100,000, right? And then probably the Las Casitas, if you're going to help 30 families, their utility bills will go down.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well,
I'd like to help Darren get his park going too, but
Sorry,
I
Darren.
think we're going to have to look at another source for that.
my second one is Campesinos de Ventura would be my number 2, and the La Casitas would be my number 3. I want to help families actually live.
Mr. Chairman, oh no, you can't say anything. No,
Can't say anything.
Don't say a word.
He's busted.
Not even looking at anyone.
Mine was one on the foothills.
And
we could,
Supervisor McLeod, your third one?
he's got it up there.
The comité.
Oh, comité?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's true. Well, isn't that Las Casitas?
Yes.
That was your second.
You put in
Third.
Gadsden
You
I
said
have
Park.
Gadsden Park for.
My first was the Gadsden Park, second was the Yuma Community Food Bank.
Oh, okay.
For 100.
And the other
then
one
the
was
Comité, and I think that
Comité
puts
is
us right at about the number.
Supervisor Simmons.
Mine was foothills.
Surprise.
Broken record here, I know, right?
That's number 1 for you, yes.
Number 2 would be Gadsden Park, just because that's a safety issue with the fixes that need to be there, and 3 would be the Comité with the others.
Okay, Martin.
Okay.
Time's up.
I mean, I honestly think, yeah, either I'm between what park, those 2 parks for my first one. I think both of them, seed money or fix one and then concentrate on the other one.
We can't do phase 1.
Well, we can buy the equipment, the playground. It doesn't mean that we have to install it, but it'll be there. I mean, just something.
No, you have to install it, don't
We
you?
have to install it because we have to show the
I mean,
benefit.
how long is it gonna take to finish the park?
It depends on what we're putting in.
I mean, by the time we buy this, it'll be to next year.
Oh, next year, absolutely.
I mean, it's just thinking ahead.
Yeah.
But
And
if
getting
that's,
additional monies for the
and then additional
paving for the
But
parking
okay,
lot.
you guys convinced me that's out of the question. I'll go with the Gadsden Park and then Campesinos and Las Casitas.
Okay, so we got to get past where we are.
And then my other 2, because you said 5, huh?
4 and 5, yes.
Oh.
Food bank and
Would be Martine's 4.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd do the foothills for my number 4.
Supervisor, I thought you said your fourth would be.
4 would be the foothills.
The foothills, G. Okay.
Put that as my 4 as well. And then my 5 would be Gadsden Park. Okay. I'm done.
Well, I think the Gadsden Park and the Las Casitas, those are clearly in everybody's top.
5.
You have number 5, Russell?
My number 5 would be Campesinos.
And your 4 and 5, Darren?
4 would be the community food bank, the evaporator cooler. Campesinos.
And my 5th one will be the Foothills Park.
From a bone. So, Mr. Vice Chairman.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, put it in 5th.
Mr. Vice Chairman.
Yes, go ahead.
From what I'm seeing on there, I would suggest that Las Casitas and Gadsden Park would be one and 2, right? I mean, they need some direction. We're kind of all over the board after that, but I think since it's all, those 2 are in everybody's top, or almost everybody's top. Top 3. We've got to get there
Okay,
somehow,
go for
right?
it. Yeah.
Definitely
Gadsden Park.
Yeah.
the Gadsden Park number 1, and then Campesinos Sin Fronteras number 2, right?
No.
No.
No, the Las Casitas.
Las Casitas would be 2. And then,
And so then we've got to make progress, so that we have to agree on number 3.
wow, add them up.
Well, it would be the lowest score, right?
Yeah.
So it'd be, you got an 11 there.
Yeah. And 14 there.
14 on the next one.
So it would be the warehouse. Yeah, that would be 3.
So let's add up the numbers then. If we did 100,000 for the food bank.
100K for the food bank.
You got 130 for Gadsden Parks, that's 230, and Comite at 106, we're right there.
130 for Gadsden Park? Oh, 130 for Gadsden.
Yeah.
And then Las Casitas, 106. And then we take just a hair less administration, whatever that number is. And there we have our totals, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think we're there.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good estimate. I think that
works for me.
We're $60,000 short.
No.
No.
See, the allocation, we don't have the allocation in yet, so it might be a little bit more than 400,000.
But that's true.
And then
That was-
and if it
the
is,
administration was
Oh,
we get more of the food bank, right?
60.
Yes.
340 plus
And
60.
you'd want, so if it's a little bit more money comes in, you would want to
40
give more
plus
money to
50,
the
you're like
food bank.
3,000.
I would give more money to the food bank, sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're in agreement that those are the top 3 applications that are going to move forward?
I'm good with it. Are you, Lynn? Martine?
Well, that's what we voted on.
So 4 would be,
I mean,
I still think 4 would
4
be.
would have to be Campesinos Sin Fronteras.
Yes, and 5 would be the park in the foothills. Okay.
Yeah, they're both the same on scores.
Well,
So
if we're only going to give the food bank 100,000, why are we giving everybody else the full amount?
because they're very good at fundraising, and
Okay.
that gives them a lot of seed money.
Okay.
And we may very well get a little bit more than 400, so it may very well be that we can fund almost the entire thing.
Okay.
I was just trying to get the numbers close to
Well, if we
what
get
we have
150, if we get 100,000 more, I want to put it into Campesinos de Ventura if they're so good.
Well,
So that those people can-
the only thing is that, I mean, I wish we could, but I think it's only 3 projects that we can
Oh, it's only 3
yeah,
that we
it's
get
Only
to
3 that
use.
we push
Oh,
forward.
okay,
And,
okay.
and
But, so you get a 4 and a 5 in case one of those projects falls
Falls
out.
out. Okay, got it.
And this is just me saying, you know, I know like the community food bank warehouse, you know, will need some replacement or cooler replacement, but when we get the money from our neighbors, the 10,000 or 15,000 that we get, we normally donate it to those organizations.
From the tribes?
Yeah. And I know it's not a lot of money, but I think I would like to see them at least if they start using that money more to what they really need in those buildings, infrastructure, to help them out. Because and I'm with the chair, you know, when this money starts going into housing or repairing or it helps out, it puts people to work.
Yeah.
So that money, the money that we get, it, in turn, they spend it here, and those people that are getting paid will, you know, buy things. So that money actually stays here. So I just, you know, that's my thoughts. I mean, I would like to see more of that happening in the future. So, all right. Anything else?
I think it'd be fun to yank the rug out from under Las Casitas. Now that we had the
He doesn't want to have anything to say with
He
it.
can't say anything.
And he can't say a word.
You love it. You can't, because he can't say a word. Okay.
So the next funding source would be the SSP, which is a competitive grant.
I think we're all good with that, right?
I'm very good with that, and I'm very good with the Colonia.
Yeah.
Yep.
In fact,
A
it
question
definitely needs
on
water.
that SSP funds. Now that money, I understand it goes out throughout the county to different agencies, or it's just Yuma County?
As a competitive grant?
No, if we were to get that money.
Supervisor Porges, it goes out to the Yuma County, yes. It's for Yuma County.
Do we give it out to no, or Yuma County stays with it? Okay.
So in this case, we put the owner-occupied housing rehabilitation program within that SSP. And we choose houses from San Luis, Somerton. We do have a waiting list where we
have, okay, yeah.
Yes.
Welton.
They are from all around Yuma County.
Welton.
Yeah.
Welton area.
Down in the
TACNA.
valley, yeah.
We have a TACNA.
Now, does it, Mr. Vice Chair and Diana, does it have to be in the county area? It can't be in the city.
It cannot be in the city
Okay.
because they have their own program, as
Good.
well as the
It
town
has
of
to be
Welton.
county.
They have their own program
Okay,
as well.
has to be in the county,
In the unincorporated area.
in the unincorporated area.
The housing guidelines, Yuma County housing guidelines stipulates, that you adopted stipulates that the funding can go to anywhere in Yuma County with the exception of the city limits of city of Yuma and town Welton, because those are the only 2 jurisdictions that has a housing program. So it can go
Okay.
inside the city of Somerton, it can go inside the city of San Luis.
Got it. So, Mr. Vice Chair and Nancy, so the county islands would be considered outside of the city limits?
Well, yeah, if it's county
Yeah,
island.
it's county.
Okay, I'm just thinking, my district is almost all in the city of Yuma except for several county islands, and I was just wondering if those county islands qualify for those.
You should.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, go ahead and move forward with
So,
those 3 applications, as well as the SSP. Right now, the NOVA, which is a notification of funding, has not been released for the Colonia set aside, but as soon as it is, then we'll go ahead and put the TACNA water project enter that.
Undo that. All right.
Thank you for your time.
Mr. Vice Chair?
Thank you.
I
Yes.
think you folks need to do a quick motion to approve what
Oh,
you
we
just
did,
did
okay.
as a group.
Mr. Vice Chairman, I move that we approve the projects as listed on the screen.
I'll second it.
There's a motion and a second to approve the items on the screen. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain. I gotta
Is
let
that good
get on
enough,
the
John, or
record.
do we need to say which is which?
I think it will reflect it from the screen as it's presented right now.
Okay.
Let the record reflect that I abstained, because there was no point, she asked for yes or no, and I said, okay. All right.
I'll turn it back.
2 minutes?
To
Chairman. Yeah, we'll take a 2-minute break for the strain of having not said anything during the last 30 minutes. I need to decompress a little. So 2 minutes, 5 minutes. This human resources, where's the short stocky guy with the, is he gone?
Oh, he left.
He left?
Yes.
All the time he was here, you know, and he didn't even get a chance to say hi. All right. So we go to human resources, is discussion and possible action to approve the Yuma County exceptional incentive policy and criteria. I'm not allowing Supervisor McLeod to start this off because I know where he's gonna go. So Felicia, you go.
Good morning, Chairman Reyes, members of the board. As you can see, the information that we presented to you, we came to you last May. We've met with the committee. We've now developed a policy that has been provided to you as known as the Yuma County Exceptional Incentive Policy. This then coincides with our Yuma County Pay for Performance program. We will then be bringing this information to you with the top 10% from the departments back to the board the first meeting in June, so that this way it can be approved by the Board of Supervisors, so that the employees that receive the nomination will then be able to receive the additional 1% effective the last full pay period in June. Okay. Any questions?
That's exceptionally short. Any questions?
I just had one, Mr. Chairman. Did we check with the department? How did that go for last year?
Okay, this is the first year. So presently, right now, all of our employers are experiencing where they received their evaluation and they're getting the 1%.
So they're just at the tail end of the first year right now.
We will be able to bring that information back to you during the budget session and kind of giving you an idea of how it's been progressing.
And when would they become eligible? After the
After
fiscal year?
Yes.
Or now?
They'll be able to become eligible now, meeting their criteria, as you'll see. An individual has to have been with us for over a year and have already received a meets, but they will receive this as of the last full pay period in June. So we'll be presenting it to the board the first meeting in June.
So he would be eligible in this
Yes,
fiscal year?
Right. We did provide that as part of the budget request last year, which was approved for FY 19-20.
Yeah, okay, that's why I was asking. Thank you.
Any other questions? Now I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
I'll second.
There's been a motion and second to approve the items as presented. Any more discussion? No discussion. All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Motion carries. We move on to the item number 4, which is County Administration discussion and possible action regarding the following legislative items: a report to the Board of Supervisors regarding proposed bills in the Arizona State Legislature with impact to Yuma County, and an update regarding strategies relating to federal legislative priorities. Paul?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Paul Melcher, Director of Economic Development and Intergovernmental Affairs. Mr. Chairman, in the interest of time, you'll see there are a number of handouts for the state legislative bills and their updates. I also provided a segregated bill so that you can see the difference individually in the reports between ACO, CSA, and then bills of local importance, the ones that were identified at the Yuma County Chamber of Commerce LPC meeting. Mr. Chair, members of the board, I also wanted to draw your attention to another handout that I provided you regarding the DPS and port of entry. Mr. Chairman, that was a striker bill. As you'll recall, there were 2 bills, one that attempted to give DPS the authority to inspect vehicles, trucks coming out of the port of entry, and then the other one was to enable the police powers of those officers to do such. So on that striker bill that I handed out, actually accomplished both. So in the first part of the bill, it gave the special designation to those peace officers to conduct vehicle inspections. And then at the second, it actually restricted that ability to conduct those inspections to those vehicles within 5 miles of a port of entry for the state of Arizona.
So what does that actually mean? Does that mean that that's restricted? It's just a restricted
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
area?
I think what it was is trying to back that off from having a statewide ability to conduct the inspections to within 5 miles of a port of entry. It's either controlled by ADOT or one that's with Mexico. So it might have been just that attempt to minimize the impact
on the border crossing.
On the border, but still it does allow DPS to conduct, or it empowers DPS to conduct those inspections.
This only makes it worse.
It just makes it worse. I don't think we'd be in favor of it, right?
Mr. Chairman, I would say the same thing, yes.
I
don't think I think it was just a tactic to back it off to make it seem as though it was minimizing the impact, but it still the effect is the same.
Well, it's minimizing the impact on the rest of the state, but it's certainly, and I was told that that bill came forth because of what was happening in the northern part of the state, where DPS was complaining that ADA was stopping people that were like intoxicated and then having to hold them until DPS would show up. And DPS was they ended up with the enforcement action, but so it was started by ADA and people were complaining.
Internal problem with DPS, not controlling their people, not.
That's right.
something that we need
And
We need to sign on and oppose it.
Mr. Chair, I think that we had sent the original letters in opposition, so I think, yes, signing on in opposition would be another good step in moving that forward.
Okay.
But yes, thank you to that. I think it was a striker bill late, so if we hadn't checked on it, and that's one of the other things I would mention in the state bills, there are a number of strikers in there already. They're highlighted in orange. So if you'll take a look through there, either CSA or ACO has taken positions of oppositions or support. And then on the elections and recorder summary that I provided for you as well, that shows you recommended opposition and support from the recorder and the elections directors. So there are a number of them in there. I would make note that the most important ones from the recorders and elections deal with elections oversight, the Attorney General attempting to gain information from voter registration files from the Secretary of State, and then also the recorder is highly in opposition to any of the bills that would attempt to amend the fees or to waive any fees. There's some one bill in there, support for veterans fees, but other than that, in general, that's the most main opposition from the elections and the recorders and regarding bills. Robin, did I cover all of that? Okay. So, Mr. Chair, if you look through there, if there are any questions, please feel free to contact me at your convenience. I'd be happy to answer those.
Just one thing, I think that when the presentation that we heard this morning from Julie Angel, she mentioned an issue that I didn't think of. It was sort of like a countywide issue because I thought, well, we're taking a lot of issues. But I remember we're taking issues related to the border. We're taking different issues for different things. And the, what's it called? The zone designation. The opportunity zone designation. Yes. That is working out weird in San Luis, for example, because half of the city is on an opportunity zone and the other half, the newer half, is not. And it's because it's driven by census data that are income related. So that's what she was talking about. So some certain areas of downtown Scottsdale fit into a census area that qualifies because it's been designated by the governor. In some areas that are really poor, just don't fall into that area that's been designated by the governor. It needs to work. And I wonder whether it would be nice to add our voice of support for a review of that process at cinemas, at Senator Cinemas. In other words, contact Julie and see if there's anything we can do to add to her, to her support in that.
So, Mr. Chairman, as a federal issue, we've been working as a group locally through the Economic Development Directors and then through Forefront ED to actually apply for an amendment to the opportunity zones. So we recreated the map. We worked directly with the city of San Luis to carve out a different opportunity zone for that area because you're right, the San Luis 2 port of entry was excluded because the census tract is so large it actually goes up into the Avenue B area where there's a lot of high-end homes, high income, so that's why it got excluded. So we're trying to carve that out so it's a very small area down and near the port of entry.
Well, we're going to be in Washington in a couple of weeks, and so it'd be nice if we had enough information to add our support to it when we visit different areas.
Mr. Chairman, I'll look to print out the maps and everything for that, and we'll get a good handout for it.
Right.
Okay.
Are we
Mr.
ready?
Chairman, moving to the other federal items, I just wanted to touch base with you. So you have the talking points in front of you. They've been finalized, all except for one on page 2, where we're talking about the San Luis crossing. The Economic Development Director for the City of San Luis is still getting me the sales tax revenue estimates so we can demonstrate the reduction in their receipts of the sales taxes. I just wanted to highlight a couple things for the SCAP program. We in the past had been talking about, the county had been recouping 5 to 8% of those costs. Now we're down to 2%. So I think that's just an extra point of emphasis that we're not moving, the federal government's not moving in a positive direction for reimbursement. It's actually moving in a negative direction. And then the rest are still pretty much standard in terms of what we've been talking about for the fairgrounds and the other topics. Mr. Chair, moving on to the support agriculture label reform in the Senate. So as we look for the House Bill 5038, it's now moved on into the Senate. I worked directly with the Western Growers Association and Farm Bureau to develop these talking points. In short, both of them support the concepts that are listed above in terms of stabilizing the domestic ag workforce, the streamlining of the processes that we were talking about. Some of the real topics that we want to see is, in the original bill, it caps the number of 3-year visas at 20,000. And out of those 20,000, the farmers have to split those with the dairies. So they're really only 10,000. There are approximately 280 to 300,000 farm worker visas that are issued each year, so that we thought that was a very small portion. So we'd like to see that cap removed. And in removing that cap, we'd also like to see E-Verify applied, because E-Verify is a very extensive and time-consuming application process. So as we move forward, if the caps could be taken off of that to allow for more visas, that would also minimize or eliminate the need for the repetitive application through E-Verify each year of those farm workers. And then also we're advocating for the remove the Farm Worker Protection Act provision. So through H2A, there are already farm worker protections included through the Department of Labor. This allowing the farm workers to file claims at federal court would put an extreme burden on the court to have to deal with those direct labor issues, so that the real desire here is to keep those through the mediation process through the Department of Labor instead of moving all those to the federal court. Mr. Chairman, that's a pretty quick summary of all of that, but in short, we're ready to go. If there are no other comments from the board on getting the talking points together, and I'll leave these separate because I think it's pretty significant in terms of what we're looking at for advocacy.
You ready?
Mr. Chairman, the only thing I forgot to say was a big thank you to the Western Growers Association and Farm Bureau for providing all the insights here. It's a very interesting bill, but overall, I think it's a really positive step forward for the region.
Has there been any, I mean, when we talk about reduction in sales, for example, and we talk about it in the border environment, which is a trade issue. Has there been any studies that determine how much of that trade has been lost simply to internet sales? I mean, it seems to me
I haven't
like
heard
it's,
of any, but we could always check into that to see if
well,
there is.
that could be, an answer that you get from someone, and obviously, someone that simply says, well, it's not just the border. I mean, it's every brick and mortar store that, with a few exceptions, have suffered through this process, and it isn't necessarily related to, a crossing. Of course, we can point to the numbers of people that cross and say, well, this is a reduction in numbers or whatever, or the time it takes to get across as deterrents for sales. But I'm sure that there's some, some impact that this shift to internet sales have had, not only on businesses everywhere, but also on businesses in the border.
Mr. Chairman, I think that's a good point. When we were putting together the talking points, we were careful not to pinpoint exactly how many businesses had closed, because you're right, there might be other factors. But when you look at it overall, I think the sales tax reduction and just the fact that there are businesses closing, because it's a really localized economy, you understand that it is really driven
by numbers.
Those numbers.
Customers, yeah.
There might be some impact from other factors, but I would say that the majority of that impact is derived from the reduction in POV and pedestrian crossings.
No, and I can tell you, as a person that crosses the border, I mean, it's, anytime you cross into Mexico, you really don't have any way at all of knowing how much time it's going to take you to get back. It's gotten so unpredictable. I mean, I once followed their app, and it said, you can cross on foot in 10 minutes. It took me 50 minutes. So I said to the border crossing guy, hey, you guys ought to update that app. And he says, do you believe anything you see in the internet? That was his answer. And so I said, okay. Thank you very much, and moved on, because there's no point in arguing. Anything else, guys? Any questions to Paul?
No, very thorough. Thank you.
No, thank you, Paul. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome, Mr. Chairman.
And we have another item in the agenda, and that's the event calendar. In the current event, board members and county administrator will report or may discuss events attended or to be attended on behalf of the county, may present a brief summary of current events, and may update the schedule for future board of supervisors meeting as appropriate. No legal action will be taken. This is going to be short because Supervisor Pancras isn't here. We've got about another, more than a fifth, obviously. So Supervisor McLeod, do you have anything to report?
Sure. I'll be traveling to Phoenix for the Supervisors Association meeting tomorrow. I was in the Hanks Day Parade in the foothills where you get to throw candy. So it's always a lot of fun.
And dog biscuits.
What's that?
And dog biscuits.
Oh, and dog biscuits, yes. Yes.
Dog
Big
biscuits.
big box of dog biscuits, and those were a big hit with the folks out there with dogs. Attended a couple of legislative policy committee meetings for CSA. Went and watched the Supreme Court in action in San Luis. I know John was there, and it was a couple of very interesting cases. So kudos to them for coming to Yuma County, and in particular San Luis. And I can tell you, the San Luis High School students that were there, the justices were amazed at how many of the students got up and asked really good questions. They said they've never seen a lineup like that. And so they're probably about 15, maybe total. And they were good questions. They were well prepared. Attended the Arizona Commerce Authority board meeting in Phoenix. Michael Bidwell is on that board, and he did a presentation on education. And he really dug down into numbers. And there are 2 large school districts in Arizona and that are failing. And they have, between those 2 districts, they have more than, I think it was like 30%. They had about 30% of all of the failing schools statewide are in just those 2 districts. He dug down into the numbers, and one of them was 93%, and the other one I think was 95%. 95% of the teachers are not certified in the subject that they're teaching. It's amazing. He did some really good work. I thanked him for that. He's going to make some noise, and so we'll see. I just found that to be a staggering statistic. Attended the governor's budget meeting here at City Hall. The GYEDC quarterly investor luncheon, of course, our special budget session. That went well. Attended the Silver Spur Rodeo Parade where you can't throw candy.
But you got horses throwing things. Huh?
Yeah, we were behind the horses again.
Oh my God.
Chamber Legislative Affairs meeting. Also had a teleconference with Ben Blink from the governor's office to let them know the impact of all tax on our budget. And so we'll see if we get any traction. They listened politely, and that was.
Oh, so you.
I guess.
So,
went and saw Freddie Lavardi at the Arizona Western College. He spoke on study and career and technical education. So it was a real good presentation. That was it, Mr. Chairman.
I tell you, I didn't miss Lynn. Supervisor Pancras, you took over her time.
I didn't realize how much had gone on.
Mr. Simmons.
Mine's short because I was sick for a week. So attended the Welton Mohawk Irrigation District Board meeting, also the VOS retreat, Hank Days Parade, which was very well attended. Attended the YPG 2020 event. I think they estimated somewhere between 22 and 23,000 people out there for that event. And I want to compliment Colonel Poppenberger and his staff for the job they did handling the crowds and getting them in and out. It went really smooth.
How was Grand Funk Railroad? Did you listen to him?
Huh?
Grand Funk Railroad.
No. No, I still wasn't.
I can tell you're not a
100%,
rocker,
and
right? You probably wanted to see like some country music guy.
And attended the Mesa del Sol Homeowners Association meeting, and just remind everybody today's the 75th anniversary of the Battle of Iwo Jima for Marines.
Oh, I didn't know that. Supervisor Borges.
I also attended the Supreme Court in San Luis,
Audience and
Arizona.
hearing.
But unfortunately, I had to leave early because I had other things to do. But they started kind of late, so. But I wish I would have heard it, and I also attended the budget session that we had. So.
All right. Well, because the reports are so short, you could have done that in English and Spanish, to make it last a little longer. But for our Spanish audience, but I didn't attend the Supreme Court hearing. I had a meeting in the city of San Luis that came up at the last minute, but I heard it was a great event, and it would have been nice to see Andy, Supreme Court Judge Gold, because we used to give him a hard time here. Every time he came in, he was the presiding judge, and I used to make fun of his suits all the time because he looked like a mortician or mortuary, whatever. And, now I think maybe I shouldn't, I don't want to remind him of any of that. But anyway, it was great to see. And the comment that you made about students being prepared in that district, it is a pleasure to me to now continually read about how those districts over there are on the top. I mean, they have five schools or 7 schools in Gaston, and 5 of them are like A-rated. And I mean, it's nice because for a long time, I think there was a lot of stigma about being in the border and having a lot of only Spanish-speaking students. And it took a long time to prove that it didn't have anything to do with their intelligence. It was just their ability to speak the language. And once they got going, they're really bright students, and I'm here to hear that. I'm happy to hear that. I also attended the Western Arizona Council of Governments meeting in Parker, where we discussed a lot of the issues that you guys talked about here. I also attended a meeting of the Vision Group, which is a group in San Luis similar to the Yuma 50, I suppose, just people who have an interest in San Luis and its growth, and the mayor is part of it, so it's nice to be able to talk to him in that particular environment. And that's all I can remember right now. Susan? Oh, I attended the budget.
That's good.
So also, of course, I attended the budget retreat, and I appreciate the direction and the feedback that we got from the board as we go into the budget process. I attended the Chamber Executive Board meeting and gave a briefing about what the county's issues are, particularly in the legislature here at the state, as well as the federal priority talking points that we're going to be taking to Capitol Hill. And then I met with the county managers group by phone last Friday, and they talked about the Arizona Department of Corrections and how they're looking at closing Florence and moving all the staffing to Iman, and that they're asking to meet on site with each sheriff to really talk about what the needs are for any police inmates. Be willing to contract with the sheriff's board. I contacted Sheriff Wilmot, and he's going to be meeting with them here on site in March. I don't have the exact date, but once he meets with them, they can determine whether it really makes any sense for the county to provide any capacity that we might have for state inmates, or whether it's not useful due to the different standards that they have for holding prisoners. So I'll keep you updated on that.
And your mom's okay? Good. All right. Anything else? I'll close the public section of the hearing.
Yuma County,
welcome to Yuma County.
In your young career, you're in front of the best board that you'll ever see.
Don't believe us like this every time. Thank you very much, and that's it. We're done. Thank you.